Hello and welcome to the Fanatics of Film. Thank you for joining me. My name is Ben, and this is just a quick, short video on discussing some of these bizarre things that are coming up, or that had come up earlier this year, but for some reason, not very many people are covering this, and so I was actually kind of waiting to see if anyone. Well, maybe they did and I just missed it. I don't know. But I do have to talk about this because this is something that irks me. I was actually really excited when I saw this trailer. So let's just watch this trailer real quick. It's literally a minute, and it's a minute long, not even 60, just barely 60 seconds.
Every film is a product of its time and tells you something about the time it was made. There's a special status that comes to some films that lodge in the audience's collective imagination. Alien is certainly one of those films.
Alien is a radical break with science fiction and that sanitized view of space.
Hans Giger's images, they were sexual, mechanical, biological, and Ridley Scott was a gift from the gods.
Ridley wasn't certain how that was going to happen. All this innards of a cow and the blood.
That was Ridley wanting this to connect to the phobias that come from our ancient past.
They were all thinking about this as more than a science fiction adventure in the future.
There is a commentary in there about what we're doing as human beings. There is a commentary in there about what we're doing as human beings.
Questions of where did life come from?
Okay, so really quick, I wanted to just outline, okay, you've heard all these really kind of positive things, and then right here we are. This is where the agenda slips in briefly. And here we are, here's the agenda right here, where they slide it in.
Where did life come from? What does it mean to be human?
One scratch on global disaster.
About those monsters outside the movie theater.
Alien was talking about something that we're still not comfortable addressing.
So that's Clark Wolf. I've been watching her for quite some time. She was on Collider back in, 2015, 2014, 2013, maybe, if I remember correctly, before The Last Jedi debacle, before and all this stuff. And I was just particularly annoyed with anything she said because all of her, everything she said was always like cutting surface stuff that like diehard super nerds like myself were basically just like, okay, that's gloss. You're basically just saying stuff that everybody knows already, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe I do that from time to time. I'm sure I'm guilty of that. But I try to tackle things that are somewhat meaningful to me, and hopefully they're meaningful to you. But Clark Wolf, she's a smart person. She's a very smart individual, but she has, she's part of the feminist agenda. It is one of those things that is, it's an unfortunate situation because I have not watched this because I'm not going to give them the money. It's a very intriguing documentary. This is an exciting thing. This was released and it looks like it got a 6.7. But that trailer to that, once again, it's reeling you in. It's reeling people like me and you, if you're an Alien fan. I grew up on this original movie. My point here is that the original Alien film I saw when I was like, I think I was 10. I was like 8 or 10, and my father showed it to me. I was just terrified out of my mind. But I loved this movie. I loved it so much, and I actually still to this day love it more than Aliens. And I know that everybody probably has a completely different opinion. Of course, most people prefer Aliens and whatever. But anyway, that's, once again, those are other stories. The point here that we're getting at is we're getting to this agenda here. The footage of it being on set and everything looks incredible. It looks amazing and incredible. October. So this did come out in October, so it isn't that old. It came out earlier in October. Alien was talking about something that we're still not comfortable discussing. Of course, that was Clark Wolf's quote there at the end. And when I saw that originally, I thought it was like, oh no, climate change, like something like they're gonna. I thought once again it's about political agenda. Before I go into this, I'll give the simple reasons I did not like it. One, its discussion of the topics was not well organized in places. So it sounds like it was pretty sporadic. 2, when it talked about the themes, it would not go very far with them, though there were a couple of places they started to and were interesting. 3, I found different parts contradicted with one another in very subtle ways. So there's a subtle contradiction there. To go into that more closely, the quote I put above the line, which was, the alien was talking about something that we're still not comfortable discussing, made him curious. I always love things about the making of Alien, but seeing one that was going to discuss a side of it that was not discussed before made me need to watch this one. Then I found the quote was a lie. So yeah, this poor person was, baited and switched. She said this at the point in the documentary where they discussed female rights, feminism, the topic that we hear more than all about 2 others right now. The impression of this in the preview was a complete lie. Where this became more than just a disappointment for me when I found the different themes and topics discussed contradicted one another in places. Primary case, when they discussed feminism, they mentioned it as though the alien was coming as a judge of the men. Then they treated Ash as the villain that was man's control, as it was letting the alien grow and get free. Those 2 don't go together. So that's an important factor here. So they're conflating things. It's like they're trying to change retconning. It's like feminism is the king of retconning instead of like starting their own thing, or maybe perhaps trying to make arguments that are somewhat digestible or somewhat refutable or even to somewhat thought-provoking. Instead, all they do is try to change existing things that maybe Ridley Scott was trying to do this. Maybe he was just all about women's rights, but I highly doubt it. I think he was just trying to make a good film that was fun and exciting and new and interesting and original. I mean, this is one of the most original, one of the most famous, one of the most groundbreaking pieces of science fiction horror in the history of film. I think that's, at least in my opinion. I am scared that it's going to poison my own appetite for the film because I love the movie, and I'm worried that, because once again, this is retroactively changing people's thought process and the thought processes, and as a result, you lose some of the fun in this. And I mean, I started this channel just because I love movies. I didn't want them to be changed. I didn't want the films that I love to be changed, or me to even have my mind changed or my thought process be changed about it as I'm trying to enjoy them. Okay, so this is one of the fun ones. This is Sir Stinkhorn Dinkhorn. The name. So don't waste your time or your money. As an enormous fan of the original Alien, I thought it started out decently enough with some genuinely interesting background into the creation and inception of the film. Okay, so yeah, that's how they pull you in. But then it abruptly pivots, and nearly the entire second half of the documentary centers around how Alien is actually a protest against the patriarchy. The actual word is used, as well as speaking to how virtually every single theme in the film is an homage to repressed femininity, actual word used, and an illuminated protest against the misogyny implicit in our society, actual words used. And all of these theories are presented as absolute, incontrovertible facts. So yeah, this is a complete agenda-driven piece to try to sway, and I believe this was made because there were so many people coming. The backlash was coming with The Last Jedi, and everybody said, "I love Ripley. I love Ripley." All these quote-unquote misogynists said, "No, I'm not a misogynist. I love Ripley." And so I think this is a direct response to those people. And I'm one of them. And so it's just ridiculous. The turn the documentary takes would have been funny if it wasn't so mind-numbingly predictable given today's social climate. for a quick example of how outrageously cringeworthy the documentary becomes in its latter half, consider this. At one point, a radical feminist whose commentary is used often in the second half of the documentary is talking about how Ash, the android played by Ian Holm, attempts to suffocate Ripley with a rolled-up magazine because of its deeply misogynist programming, actual words used. Apparently, a bigoted, spiteful human male created and programmed Ash, and this is the actual theory presented as fact, to specifically penetrate her mouth with a magazine rather than simply strangling her. You see, the act of penetrating her mouth with a nearby disused magazine was specifically programmed into Ash in the event of this outlandishly specific situation arises, as he, being an android, would not have been able to make that decision himself. This is just one brief example of many wonderful theories that you can look forward to, and it's not even close to the most ludicrous one that monopolize the entirety of the latter half of the documentary and are presented with such an air of pretentiousness that borders on the hilarious. It's so stark. At times I almost believed it to be a parody. Wow. It starts out interesting and ends as boring, amateurish 2019 social justice warrior trash. Don't waste your time unless that sort of thing appeals to you. I bought this film outright rather than renting it, as Alien is one of my favorite films of all time. Me too. I regret that decision. Had I known what sort of farce this documentary was, I wouldn't have wasted my time or money at all. So, wow, what an extraordinarily well-written review, Sir Dinkhorn. But the point is that this person wrote an astoundingly amazing review of this, and I had to kind of bring this to light. This film is gutter trash. I mean, when it comes down to it, there are lots of women who feel like they are oppressed, and we get that. I get that. I mean, I get that you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry anyone feels that way. No one should feel oppressed. But take a minute, if you do feel oppressed, just take a moment. Take a moment and think for a second. What exactly constitutes oppression, you know? Maybe I don't understand your way of, certain people's way of life, and I get that. I don't know your perspective. But for you to try to retcon and change things that were clearly not. I mean, rather than actually like searching for these as actual facts, like maybe asking Ridley Scott directly and asking him if this was the actual agenda in his filmmaking. I mean, there was an interview I saw of him talking, and he was saying that he went out to see Star Wars, and he went home and started writing Alien. Like that, like Alien is a direct response, and it's a direct inspiration from Star Wars. Like it just got him excited. He's like, I haven't written anything science fiction yet. This was really fun, and he enjoyed Star Wars. He enjoyed the original Star Wars. He went home and wrote this thing, and then combined with the amazing score that happens there, it's just incredible. I love this film, and I'm not going to watch this documentary. I'm sorry for I should probably have read it, or at least watched those scenes so I would know a little bit more about them. But I don't want to poison my own experience with it. And I'm these days that's what you're doing. Anyone all you're doing, and it's like you feel oppressed. Fine, that's okay. Let's tackle that. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out why you feel oppressed, rather than trying to tell the world that you're oppressed. Why don't you ask yourself if you're truly oppressed? That's my opinion. That's how I feel. You probably disagree with me, I just don't think you are. And we have little boys, little dudes growing up are being told constantly that they should be ashamed of themselves for their gender. And for any feminist, like, would you ever want anyone to judge you for your gender? Of course you wouldn't. No one would. No one would want that. No one wants that.